Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Well, we have a movie star in the house today. If you're familiar with the movie Forks Over Knives, you will know our last guest. He had one of the more memorable scenes in the movie, and he is now doing great things in Chicago. We talked a little bit about him yesterday with Dr. Baxter Montgomery, and he's here today to talk about God's Farmacy with an F. Please welcome Dr. Terry Mason. It's always great to see you.
Chef AJ, the pleasure is always mine. I am proud to be in your presence, even virtually, because the energy and the spirit still comes through.
Well, I got to just say, I've known you since the movie. I was at the premiere and I remember coming up to you because do you remember your lines? You had a really memorable scene in the movie.
Yeah, there was one line when I said, if it walks, hops, crawls, swims, got eyes on mom and a daddy, don't eat it.
I love that. You're such a find because before that movie, I never heard about you.
Yeah, I'd never heard about, well, this was all new to me. And I'd just been doing what I was doing in Chicago, trying to take what I've learned and gleaned from other people like you and Baxter Montgomery and T. Colin Campbell and Caldwell Esselstyn to make it real to people that so they could understand that what you eat, not just what you eat physically, but what you eat mentally and spiritually can cause tremendous problems for you. Or great things.
Exactly. Like I always say, food is either your slowest poison or your greatest medicine.
Yep.
How did they even find you for the movie? I'm just curious.
I don't really know. I think that part of it was when I was named as Commissioner of Health for the city of Chicago. And one of the things that was one of the lead stories in the paper, the Sun-Times newspaper in Chicago, was I issued a challenge to Chicago to get fit, and particularly the city council. And I think that's probably where that whole thing came, because I think they were looking for a city official or a governmental official who was in harmony with the whole idea about food and getting fit as being what we need to do.
Nice. How did you film over a period of days or one day? And did you say yes right away when you were offered this chance?
Oh yeah, what we did was we filmed at a place called Soul Vegetarian Restaurant in Chicago, where the late Prince ICL was its founder. And it was an amazing opportunity to really bring this full circle, because it was at Soul Vegetarian that I really got an opportunity to get an introduction to vegan eating.
Nice. Did you ever think the movie would be so successful? Because it really, I think, launched a movement.
I think the message was what was moving people, and the way that they told the story in very simple, plain English, with people who looked like the people who were watching the movie, who had authenticity because they had that bridge of reality based on the things that they were struggling with, that they could relate easily to those who were watching. And it made it much, much more believable than otherwise in a stage movie would have been.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, I think this was about 2011 when I met you, and you've had a little bit of a personal transformation. I mean, you looked good then, but you look amazing now. You look younger, trimmer. What's happened?
Well, I've been always, since that time, I've been eating basically plant-based, but I was running around and I was sedentary, because I was working and I was at desk all day and all that kind of stuff. But one day I was coming from a food pantry meeting, trying to think about how we could do a better job in doing that at our church. And this was about 4600 North on a street called Broadway in Chicago. And after the meeting, I said, it's a beautiful day. And the Spirit said to me, this is a wonderful day. You should really enjoy it. And so I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to walk home from here. Now, so from 4600 North to get to my house, I have to go 46 blocks down to zero. Then I've got to go 50 blocks more to get to where I live. And what happened was I just started walking, got to McCormick Place, which was about 2300 South. And I was like, oh my God, I got this meeting I'm supposed to be at in 15 minutes, just like with your show. And I said, I got to hurry up. I got to get out of here. But I tell you, it was the beginning of a journey for me with walking, just walking. You know, walking is the second exercise you learn after crawling, because your crawling gets your muscles ready for you to walk. And I've been walking ever since my longest walk probably has been at one time, maybe 15, 16 miles. And my normal walks are more like 6 miles at a time. And I don't walk fast. I'm not doing anything. I'm not flating my arms from side to side. I'm walking, and I'm walking along the lakefront in Chicago, which has which wonderful scenery. And it just happened. I kept eating the way I was eating. But the next thing I knew over a couple of months or more, I went from like 232 pounds now to 153.
Wow.
Yeah,
Just doing that.
just doing that. And I didn't change the way I ate at all because I was already eating okay. And I was eating plant-based. That's what I was doing. And I just want people to know that this works. This works. This you don't need a plan. You don't need, all you got to do is get your mind right and decide that that's what you're going to do, and just do it.
Wow. Well, you look amazing. And may I say your age? Is that appropriate?
Sure.
You just turned 71 last month.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And you look better than ever. I bet you feel great too.
I feel absolutely wonderful. I got to keep up with people like you.
Just about 9 years behind you.
And our good friend in California, you
Yep.
know, some stuff I eat, you know.
Yeah, but Chef Yvette, she was just
Chef
on
Yvette.
recently. She's about your age as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is the fountain. The fountain of youth is eating good food in all three dimensions and moving. That's all. If you do that, it'll happen.
Absolutely. Stephanie, who's watching live, says a very nice comment. I've had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Mason a couple of times here in Chicago. He's amazing, and he's got the plant glow like never before.
Well, you know, you can't beat God. When you're eating the stuff that comes out of what is intended for us to eat, how can you go wrong?
Yeah.
You go wrong when you're not eating the stuff that we're intended to eat, like I did for most of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm just grateful that I had a chance to run into people like you and Baxter and all the folks that were involved. I always think of Sandera Nation in the movie, who was the diabetic who got off our medications, and just her transformation. I think that Brian did a great job in telling a great story, which I think was one of the pivotal movies of the movement.
Yeah, absolutely. You're a retired urologist, board certified urologist. And if you had known then what you knew now, would anything have been able to help some of your patients?
Oh, I think so. I really think so. Some of it I did know, because one of the other things that I spent a lot of time doing was dealing with erectile dysfunction. And as you know, erectile dysfunction is really an inflammatory disease. And as the clip in Forks Over Knives showed very clearly about what food does and how it sets off this inflammation and the damage to the inside lining of our blood vessels that become plaques. These things then restrict the flow of blood through not only our major arteries, but our smaller ones too, the ones that feed the penis. And they also impact the way that the certain structures in the penis have to allow more blood to go in and stay in under pressure in order for us to have an erection. So it was just natural that when I saw this, I was like, this is it. This is the problem. And all the drugs, and I was one of the number one prescribing drug guys of all of the erectile dysfunction drugs in the state of Illinois. So when I got to this was the truth that I couldn't keep secret. And I just had to let people know. It didn't mean that they did it, but my job wasn't to make sure you did it. My job was to make sure you knew and understood it.
Nice. Well, you often said that erectile dysfunction is the canary in the coal mine.
Canary in the coal mine. You remember. Thank you.
No,
So,
I'm
but
telling
it
you, you
is.
and Dr. Lyle were my two favorite people in the movie, and I hadn't even met you when the movie came out. And it's like now I consider you guys friends. I mean, that movie just changed so much for so many people.
It did. It did. And it changed things for me too. And I tell you, I mean, I am so grateful. And I'm grateful to God for sparing me to be here, to be able to walk that walk, literally, and talk the talk and show the manifestation of the power of plants and
Yeah.
movement. That's all.
You know how Dr. Esselstyn often says heart disease need never exist, and if it exists,
Right.
it never progress. Could you almost say the same thing for ED?
I think so, because they're all the same disease. The difference is the blood vessels in the heart are bigger, or the ones that supply your toes and your legs are bigger, but it's the same disease. It's not any different. And actually, if men are suffering from erectile dysfunction, as we learn, many of these men have undiagnosed disease in their coronary arteries and the arteries that feed their brain and in their feet, their kidneys. So you don't have this disease one place. If you've got it anywhere, you have it everywhere.
Mhm. If you have heart disease anywhere, you have it and everywhere, or vascular disease. So when a man presents to his urologist, does the urologist check his heart to look for disease there as well, or does he just prescribe some Viagra?
One of the things that I did, I can't say what they're doing today because it's been a while since I've done it. But what I used to do once I got educated about the relationship between food and erectile dysfunction, we always had a conversation about, because it was never just by itself. They were also used maybe hypertensive, diabetic, and other things. So the good thing about when we move to a plant-based way of eating, it's not something that just does one thing. It really can change the trajectory of all of these inflammatory diseases that plague us, whether we call it uh, coronary artery disease or strokes or peripheral vascular disease. Obviously, you can't be eating bad all your life and eat one plant-based meal and think you're going to be cured. No, you have to be as religious. You have to be as steadfast. You have to be as consistent with eating right to get right results as you were eating wrong, getting what you had.
I love that. I love that. Karen, who's watching live, wants to know, how old were you, Dr. Mason, when you became plant-based?
Oh my God, that was back. How long ago we did Forks Over Knives? 20
Well, I
years?
think I think I think you filmed it in like 2010 and it came out in 2011. I think
Yeah,
that's
so about that time. About that time.
yeah.
Um, and in all honesty, as a lot of people do, I went, I backslid sometimes, but it's not about where you make a mistake. It's how you correct it and move forward. And I would tell people that don't beat yourself up. If that happens, don't beat yourself up. Say that was that day, but don't keep doing it. But that was that day, and I'm going to move forward because I love me some me, you know, and I love you some you, and I want everybody to feel as good as I do, and to have that opportunity to take this new step in their own lives. It's wonderful.
I'm sorry about that. There's somebody at the door. So I have a question. One of the viewers sent in. Her name is Roseanne. She actually was the winner of the Breville air fryer one day, and she said, "Dr. Mason, I've read that renal failure disproportionately affects the Black community. Is that true? And if so, why?"
Yes. And it does because most of the diseases adversely affect the African American community. And it's not because people are Black, but being Black is a surrogate for having a kind of lifestyle and living in a situation where you've got to deal with pressures that the majority population doesn't have to deal with. And you don't have to worry about where you live or how you live, or you don't have to worry about the kinds of things that people who live in some of these communities have to face. In addition to that, you don't have to worry about being marginalized on your job. You don't have to worry about some of the both overt and covert activities that where you're sort of shunned. You don't have to think you have to change the way you look in order to be more accepted. I mean, it's a travesty that in the world that people are so dissatisfied with their skin color being dark that skin bleaching cream is now a $10 billion international industry. That's that speaks volumes because that means the people have a subconscious and maybe even a conscious hate of who they are. There was a movie called Dark Girls. You can get the trailer if you like, but it was a movie called Dark Girls. And there's this young, beautiful black girl in the beginning of the trailer that says, I took my color, and she was dark skinned. She said, I took my color from my father and I hate him for it. There's episodes where they talk about being in the bathtub and having bleach poured into the bath water to see if it would lighten the skin. Many skin lightening products, like there are many skin lightening products, not just African Americans in America, but darker skinned people all over the world, because the norm, or what is considered normal and right, is white. And that's not to denigrate, all white people. It's just that that's just the way it was and is. And so you have people who are at war with their own self. We hate who we are. So we do the things to try and mimic looking like white people in terms of straightening the hair and lightening the skin and all of these other things. And so and it's been going on not just a few years, but this is hundreds of years. And it's not just in America, it's on the African continent, it's the Philippines, it's a place where anywhere you have people of dark skin tones, including the so-called, I don't like to call them that, but the original people of the Americas and of the Central Americas, who are darker skinned people, many were massacred by the British and others. And these are things that are not in dispute. This is the history. And so out of that wanting to belong and seeing all of the images that were good and pure and authoritarian as white meant that it cast being dark or black in a totally different negative light.
Wow. Thank you. Karen sent a question in and said, is there anything that can prevent or reduce cysts on the kidneys?
I'm not aware of anything that can prevent cysts on the kidneys. I will say that most cysts, and I would ask you to follow the ultrasounds with your urologist and or your nephrologist if you have some issues. But most people who have simple cysts on the kidney, there's nothing that needs to be done unless it's growing in such a way that it's causing an obstruction. But I would defer to your urologist and your nephrologist for how you best handle those. I used to see many people who had simple cysts on the kidney, and once we made the diagnosis and it was nothing else but a simple cyst, there was nothing else to do.
Great, thanks. Julie, who's watching live, wants to know if you recommend any supplements, and do you personally take any supplements?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I take some supplements that are biochemically made, but the main supplements I like to take are my blueberries. Those are the main things are dark colored fruits and vegetables. Why? Because there's a very high concentration of those very important antioxidants that we need. And those antioxidants are important for helping to keep our cells from being damaged by all the other stuff that they get bombarded by, that actually create abnormal growth can end up as cancers and things of that nature. So I do, and because I'm not a big walnut fan eater, so I take a omega-3, 6, and 9 supplement because I know I don't get enough because I don't eat those kinds of nuts, and I like them. I don't like them, I should say, but I do take the supplements. And I do other supplements. I do, I take the normal ones that I'm sure a lot of people take, that again, most of these are in the family of antioxidants. So yes, I believe in these natural things like CoQ10 and some of the other anti-inflammatory agents that are commonly used. So yes, I do, but I try to get them in the natural form as best I can, where I can, if it's something I like.
Great, thank you. Question was sent in by Steph, and she says, is it common for vegans to go to the bathroom more often than non-vegans during the night because our food has so much more water content? When is it considered to be abnormal and we should be concerned and see a doctor? And she said to go women over 64 to go to the bathroom 3 times during the night. She stops drinking at 6:30 and goes to bed at 9:30.
Well, it depends on it depends on what time. If you start going to bed, stop drinking at 6:30 and you go to bed at 9, depending on how much you drank before then is going to determine how much you may get up at night. It's not a bad thing to get up at night, but what you want to make sure is that there are no other underlying issues like diabetes or things of that nature. And if you're still getting up too much at night to urinate, I'd cut off my fluid intake even earlier in the day. I mean, in the night, so that you don't get up as much at night. And then I'd also look at other things and just see your doctor. Make sure you're not a borderline diabetic or anything like that. You always don't guess, get the test.
I love that. Don't guess, get the test. That's clever. I love it. So one of the live viewers named Latanya is asking, what causes kidney stones and are they dangerous?
They can be depending on, so those things that cause kidney stones, the different chemicals, like oxalate is one of those things, and oxalates come out of a lot of different foods that we eat. But one of the things that the number one drug I used to tell my patients who had kidney stones for to help to prevent kidney stones is water. Because in order for you to form a kidney stone, you have to have that nidus, that beginning point, which is caused by your urine being so concentrated that this little nidus starts and it just keeps getting more and more mineralization going on top of it. So I would say the number one drug is water, and nothing substitutes for water. I mean, I'm not in all this alkaline water, and I don't do it. Just good old fashioned water, and that's what you need to drink. And I think that those are the most important things. If you're still having some issues, I always again recommend people see their internist just to be sure that there's not anything else going on. There are 2 types of diabetes. There's diabetes mellitus, which is the one where your blood sugars are out of control. And there's another one called diabetes insipidus. That one has nothing to do with sugar. That's another different kind of problem. And if you're having to go a lot, have that checked with your doctor to make sure it's not one of those 2.
Nice. Have you ever heard of psychogenic polydipsia?
I've heard of it. Since I don't deal with psychological issues, I've never treated it or never counseled anybody with it. And I think that what we need to do is just be natural with ourselves. I think that sometimes we've been so medicalized in this society to think that anything is some sort of disease and you need a medication for it. I would really just take a look at starting a log of the kinds of how much fluid and what you're drinking, when you're drinking, and how much of it you're drinking. And at the same time, keep logs of when you're urinating. And then begin to think about, how can I cut back some of this fluid and keep that same log and see what happens?
Yeah. The reason I ask, I just thought of it because I had a dog that had it. They thought it was diabetes insipidus. And when they did all the tests, it wasn't. And she ended up going on psych meds. Go figure,
Yeah. So, I mean, but there's all kinds of things. And I never, ever want to have people think that I'm going to get the answer. That's why I always I always put as an appendix to what I ever say, to go make sure you go see your physician, your primary care doctor, just to be sure.
Absolutely. Thank you. Let's see. Oh, Here's a good question. This is from Sue, and she asks, how fast have you seen someone's erectile dysfunction improve after they start a whole food plant-based diet?
Well, the thing is, in God we trust, all others must have data. So all I can go by is what people tell me, because I don't retest them. I don't put them back. I didn't at that time put them back through the testing to see if their erections improved or not. But I tell you that everything sort of depends on, a plant-based diet doesn't mean you ate one plant-based meal. A plant-based diet means that that's what you're eating all the time with every meal. And I think it's a function of how bad it was, how bad the inflammation was before you started. And if you've been eating pretty much bad all your life, you can't think that a month of eating right is going to erase everything. Could it get better? Yes, it could. But it depends on how diligent you were with your plant-based eating. And I'm not saying it's a magic bullet, it's going to fix everything, but it certainly will help.
Great, thank you. So we call today's broadcast God's Farmacy with an F. You chose the title. What does that mean, and what have you been up to since you retired?
Well, my new company is called God's Farmacy, and it's trademarked, I want people to understand that it's God's everything that I have a picture. Let me put it this way. I do a talk, and every time I do a talk, I end the talk with a picture of a field with all kinds of fruits and vegetables growing. And I said, if we ate, this is the true pharmacy. That's what I would tell people. And that's Farmacy. This is the true pharmacy, because every medication just about that we can think of. And there's a study, if you like to look, it's a study of the subject is called pharmacognosy. And if there's a school of pharmacy anywhere where you live, University of Illinois has, in the College of Pharmacy or Pharmacology, has the School of Pharmacognosy, because pharmacognosy is the study of extracting active ingredients from plants to make medications. So like digitalis comes from the foxglove plant. There are many of our chemotherapeutic penicillin, many of our antibiotics come from molds and different things. These are all plants. So there are so many things that we have been kept away from a knowledge perspective of what plants can do. Plants even are the origins of many of our chemotherapeutic agents like bleomycin and penicillin, which comes from plants. So it doesn't surprise me. It's just that there's no money in this. There's no money in telling people, to eat this plant or do this or do that. It's much better, because what they'd rather do is go into a laboratory, identify the active ingredient, then synthesize that active ingredient, and then they can patent that synthetic pill or that sequence, and then sell it to you and I as pills or something like that. And there is no value proposition for telling you to eat right. And that's why God's Farmacy, I'm really going to push that everything we need comes from there, from one way or another. And if we look at the countries around the world that eat more out of the pharmacy, Farmacy, they take less stuff out of the Pharmacy.
Wow. So how are you doing this? Is it, you have a patent on it, but what actually are you doing?
Well, what we're doing is we are in the process of getting land. This year we used some land at one of the churches, and we started an organic garden and a sustainably farmed garden. So, and we use no pesticides or anything else. And the church started a program that allowed people to buy shares. It was a community-sponsored agriculture project. So people bought shares in the farm. So a full share this year sold for like $470. Now, what did you get? Well, what you got was and this was excluding the weight of, we had watermelons, cantaloupes, we had beets, we had other root vegetables, And none of the weight of those things were counted in the weight of the food that you receive. So you receive 23 pounds. Usually we have 4 different types of kale. We had collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, spinach. We had all of those things. And then we grew 3 different types of watermelon. We grew a red meat watermelon, a yellow meat watermelon, and one that was sort of sherbet colored. We also had cantaloupes. And you got all of that every other week for the entire growing season. So we've got about 2 or 3 more distributions to go, and that's where people are going to get. Last Thanksgiving, I was out there helping to pick some of the collard greens. And I mean, oh my God, we picked tons and tons of we had 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had almost 1,500 pounds of collard greens. And we have, like I said, all the different kales too. So it's been a labor of love, and it is where we need to start, is with natural foods. And if we eat the natural foods and we drink water, constipation won't be our friend anymore. Because with the fiber in the water, your gut will eliminate naturally, not to mention what it does in the bacterial growth in your intestines to help ward off all kinds of different things.
Wow. How are
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. How are people finding out about this venture?
Well, what we're doing, I just got my grandson and some other folks to help me with the technology. These kids are amazing these days. And what I'll be doing is like you're doing. I'll be doing podcasts. I'm going to be starting those pretty soon, just to let people know as we get ready for our next growing season. We're also going to be looking to see what relationships we may have with other people in warmer climates, like where Dr. Baxter Montgomery is. So it's a work in progress, but this is what I've decided to do. I don't do anything. I've turned down every single job in medicine that's been offered to me. To tell you how through I am with it, I even let my medical license expire because I don't plan to ever need that again. And if I do need something like that, then I'll find somebody that has one and let them do that part of whatever it is that has to be done. But I am convinced unequivocally that if we eat right, we'll live right. And if we live right, we won't need as many of the medications that we currently take. And if we do that, we can see that eating out of God's pharmacy that will keep us healthy for many, 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 many years to come.
Wow. It's amazing. Are you still doing your radio show? And if so, how can we access it?
My radio show is WVON. It's AM 1690. It's also available on WVON.com. It also streams every Sunday from 10 to 11. And I've been doing my show. This is my 31st year of doing this show. So it's every Sunday from 10 to 11 on WVON, and that's on AM 1690 WVON. And you can go online and listen to it anywhere you can get iHeartRadio. You can get me.
Wow. So, and can we listen to past episodes as well?
Past episodes, I'm in the process of uploading those on my website.
And what is your website, by the way?
It's www.terrymasonmd.com. .org. www.terrymasonmd.org.
Nice.
Go there. I'm having them upload the past broadcasts, and as I begin to do the other things with the video and things like this, and spend time with the lovely AJ, who is just an amazing person. AJ, you are just a gem. One of God's true jewels.
Oh, thank you. I feel the same way about you. I just went on your website and you look great. You're wearing a blue suit and there's this like gorgeous 2 pieces of art behind you.
Yeah, that's my living room. I was doing a movie and they came and shot it. They were looking all over and they said, well, we'll just shoot it right here. And I said, but this is my living room. He says, oh, and then he says, you know what, you could use this for your homepage for your website. And so that's what I did. So it's still a work in progress, but it's my living room at my house. I mean,
Wow.
my apartment.
Right. I'm curious, do you cook all your own meals or do you go to some of those wonderful vegan restaurants that they have in
Oh
Chicago?
yeah, I cook a lot, but I also go to we got some great vegan restaurants in in Chicago, and I've frequented many of them. I still go to regular restaurants too, because you can get nowadays, if they're good restaurants, they can be very vegetarian friendly, and many of them have options. Now, I'm surprised at the number of vegan or vegan like options people have in the restaurants. And if they're good restaurants, they can cook anything, and all you have to do is ask for it.
So how do you do it? Like you're in a restaurant, it's not vegan. Do you sit down and say, "Hey, I'm vegan. What can you make me?" Or do you navigate the menu? How do you figure that out?
Well, what I do is I say, this is what I always start with. I'm not a, I'm, I like rices and I like, these things like that. And I also like very spicy sauces. So there's one Italian restaurant, they make this sauce. It's called a Diablo sauce. And what they do is they cut up mushrooms and all kinds of broccoli, and they put the kitchen sink in this stuff. And that's what I'll eat when I go there. Everybody else gets what they want, and I get this. And it's very filling. Sometimes it's just the vegetables and the Diablo sauce. And it's really very, very, very I like it. I like very spicy stuff.
Nice, nice. I was born and raised in Chicago, and we used to go to this restaurant downtown called Ho Cow. Have you ever been there? Hoekow. It was a Cantonese restaurant on Lake Street.
I don't remember, but you can always, if you go to a Chinese restaurant, you can always find a great mix of vegetables, and even good Italian restaurants could always do it too. Um, there's one place I like to go. They have this amazing minestrone soup that is not, there's no meat in it anywhere of any kind, but it's just amazing. And of course, there's other places where I go to these places where they have salads, and I can just make my own salad. And I love artichokes, and I like hearts of palm, and I like, you know what I mean? And you can do some very creative things. And I'll put all kinds of stuff in. And I like peppers. I'll put those in my salads. So, just be creative. Just be creative, and don't be afraid to try things. Don't be afraid to try things. And don't, you know, some people are super, super strict. And what I try to do is I try to be the balance of staying on what I believe and what I want to do and where I am. And most of the times, if you work with the people, if you're going out to eat with other people, if they're decent restaurants, anybody can stir fry some rice.
Yeah, you hope,
Anybody.
right? Yeah,
Yeah. Anybody should be able to do that and some vegetables, and then you're done.
yeah. One of the viewers is saying, "What is your personal favorite vegan restaurant in Chicago?"
Hmm. Well, let me see. So Veg was the first vegan restaurant I went to, and I really liked that a lot. I also go to Manjani's. Majani has a great vegan restaurant, and I like that too. And then there's a bunch of them up on the north side. There's all kind of Halsted Diners up that way, and Karen Calabrese is going to be opening another restaurant soon. So I used to go. That was where I used to go first. That was where I used to go to a lot. That and So Veg, because Karen was the first person that introduced me to things that weren't cooked more than about 115 degrees. So I really appreciate what she's done. She's been out there a long, long time. She still looks amazing. She's doing amazing things. She's getting ready to my knowledge. She's opening up another spa, but she's going to have a new restaurant, and I'm looking forward to it.
Nice.
And
Mr.
one other thing. She had a vegan restaurant called Karen's on Green, and it was a very upscale looking restaurant, very, very upscale. Because she said, I don't want my restaurants to look like it's a place where people expect dirt to be on the floor and all that kind of stuff. But it was very, very upscale. And she had some very, very nice upscale twists to the food that she served. So my hat's off to her.
Yeah, she was just on the show. She looks amazing.
Oh, she hasn't aged a day.
No, not at all. Boy, gosh, she's gorgeous. So Misty says, what do you recommend for prostate cancer?
First thing I recommend for people with prostate cancer, see a urologist, because what you want to do is no matter what you do, in God we trust, all others must have data. So whatever you're doing, you need to be able to see if you can quantify whether or not it's helping you. Dean Ornish wrote a great paper, and in Dean's paper, he talked about those people that he put through a kind of an abbreviated part of his program where they did meditation and yoga and they did plant-based eating. And he was able to show that some of the genes that were responsible for turning on cancer were turned off with this lifestyle plus the food, eating plant-based. So I am, I don't need anybody to convince me. I know. I'm not talking about what somebody told me. I've seen the evidence. And if you don't want to believe it, that's up to you. But don't think you're going to eat bad all your life, have 2 vegan meals and everything is going to be fine. No. You make a decision to have the same discipline you had eating good that you did when you were eating bad.
I love that. I love that. You mentioned you have a grandson. I'm curious, have anyone in your family adopted your healthy way of eating over the years?
Not yet. My kids are all younger. My kids, my grandkids, and my great grandkids, they're all they do some. They eat. Let me just put it this way: they eat more vegetables than they used to, and that's okay. I don't. The one thing you shouldn't do is beat people up, because you catch more honey, you catch more flies with honey, And so what you do is you show people how they can begin the journey, even doing what they're doing. No one, a salad is one of the best ways to start. And just use the stuff you like to eat. I told you some of the stuff I like, and I put nuts in my salad, and I put, fruits in my salad. I put, all this kind of stuff. And the other things are soups. Soups are easy. You can do vegetarian soups really, really, really easy. And there's some places that make some good soups. And I like things like navy bean soup. I love the navy bean soups that are made in a number of the vegan restaurants. And you didn't get this way in a day. It's going to take more than a day to get out of this. Just be persistent. Believe in yourself and in the food that comes out of God's pharmacy, because it will make a difference.
Absolutely. So at Thanksgiving, do they make you something special?
Where?
Well, because you're saying you're the only one in your family that eats this way. I'm guessing you celebrate with your family. Do they make you?
Oh yeah. They know how to make. I'll eat the greens, and I'll have mine to the side, and and they'll have some other veggies, and they'll have that. It's just that they know now, and some of them are eating that way too. They don't eat that way all the time. But I don't get mad if they don't eat it all the time, because everybody's got to do things in their own time. Because until you do it in your own time, it won't stick. Don't do it because I'm doing it. Do it because that's what you want to do. And I try to be as best of an example. Now, I'm not perfect, but I try to be as best an example of what I'm doing and the results. I say, here are the results. This is what this has done. And I can walk most people out of people, and I just feel so good and so full of energy eating this way, and I'm never going back.
Yeah. Well, you didn't do it until you were about my age, and look at you now. I mean, you're aging in reverse, so it's never too late. In other words,
and nothing until you die. It's never too late.
Absolutely.
When you're dead, that's when it's too late.
Yes, I would agree. So you were a urologist. Some of the questions people are asking are really not urology. So I would invite them to please ask another time. We have Dr. McDougall on Wednesday, but I'm just going to ask this question just because I think it's so funny from Pam. Can you poop too much?
I don't think so. I mean, depends on what you're eating, you know? I mean, I don't have a problem. What I do tell people that once you begin this lifestyle of eating and you're drinking adequate amounts of water, you will find that you will poop. You won't be straining, pushing it out, and your eyeballs won't be popping out of your head trying to get it to come out because it'll come out very naturally and it'll come out in the right size pieces. And I think that that you want a healthy bowel movement. And if you're eating a lot of plants and you're drinking water, you're going to have more bowel movements. I mean, all you got to do is look at cows. I mean, cows are in the field and they just pooping as they go along. You know, I'm not expect people to do that, but
What a world it would be, huh?
what the world would be. But compared to when you're a meat eater, I will tell you two things you'll notice about your poop. Number one, it'll be smoother and not as bumpy. And number two, you won't have to push it out. And number three, the aroma will be different.
Oh yeah, that is so true. At least I can speak for myself. My poop don't stink.
That's right. And I tell you, it did stink because you were eating stuff that was putrefying.
Yeah, I mean, think about it like a cat. When a cat goes in a litter box, it smells way worse than like when a dog who's an omnivore, not an obligate carnivore, goes to the bathroom.
Yeah, because you know that's what it does. And we've got to remember those meat pieces, the cheese, the eggs, the cheese, and the poultry and all that stuff gets converted to TMAO, which is one of the most potent inflammatory agents. And so if you want to decrease your TMAO, all you got to do is just start eating the stuff that comes out of the ground. And if it walks, hops, crawls, flies, swims, got eyes in the mommy and daddy, you might want to rethink it.
I love that line, and you made it up yourself. It wasn't scripted.
No, it just happened. That was
Yeah.
God's line.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Well, Renee says she loves you, Dr. Mason, and Lynn says you look amazing. Yeah, I'm curious, when you're home and on days you're not going to one of the wonderful restaurants in Chicago, like what do you eat for a day when it's just you in charge of you?
Well, I always start out with my smoothie in the morning, you know, always with tons of blueberries. If I got raspberries, I'll put them in there. I'll put kale in there. I'll put spinach in there. I put my Dr. Udo's blend of omega-3, 6, and 9. It's a special blend that I get. It's a plant-based blend. And I use my pea-based protein powder and water. And that's what I eat in the morning. If I'm going to be at home, or if I'm go to a restaurant, I actually go someplace I can get what I want. And most of the time, you know, I'm going to go to a couple places. One of the things I find that I like a lot are soups, you know, and I love a good lentil soup. And they make a wonderful lentil soup that I pour over basmati rice at this particular Mediterranean restaurant that I like to go to. And I'm going to learn to make the soup myself because that is one. I mean, soup, and you do soup with beans and you got a meal. You got a complete
Absolutely.
meal.
Yep.
You got what you need, and you know, water and you know, just keep stuff simple, guys. Don't try and make it hard. Just keep it simple. And wherever you can, just eat the food naturally. They call that a salad.
Did you ever hear of veganism or a vegan diet before you started eating healthfully? Was it just something that wasn't on your radar?
Wasn't on my radar. I mean, I was a guy that ate a steak every day. What are you talking about? I didn't think about eating vegan. I had a porterhouse. I used to go get my porterhouses cut every week, 7 at a time. And I ate a lot of, and then my favorite fish was salmon. I used to eat a lot of salmon. And but you know, that was then, this is now.
Yeah.
And the mind change, and the change is here. If you don't make the change here and here, it won't be permanent.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a nice comment from Nita. She says, Dr. Mason seems so calm and peaceful. This diet must be good for the spirit as well.
It is. It is, because you got to remember, if you remember watching the movie Food Inc. You remember seeing those cows getting ready to get slaughtered, or the chickens getting ready to get slaughtered. Don't think the cow or the chicken behind the cow or the chicken that just got slaughtered don't think they didn't know it was about to happen. They communicated some sort of way. And all of those hormones got shot into as they were feeling the pain or going through the torture of their death. All these catecholamines got pushed out into their bloodstream. And we eat that. That stuff was in their bloodstream, and we're eating that as we eat the meat. How potent it still is because you cook it or what have you. But just remember, guys, I used to tell the guys, there's a picture that I have as a slide that has this place with all these smoked sausages and hams and steaks and all that stuff. And I used to tell the guys, all the manly places to eat will rob you of your manhood.
Wow. That you're coming up with a lot of great sayings today.
Yeah, well, that's stuff I've been saying for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, and
do you know any of the other wonderful plant-based doctors in Chicago, like Dr. Edwin McDonald?
of course,
Oh, I love him.
he's a great guy. He's
Yep.
a chef. He's actually a chef. He's not
Yep.
just plant-based. He's a certified chef. Ed is a great guy. He's a gastroenterologist.
I've had him on many times. I think he's so great. He's wonderful.
Yeah, he lives about just a few blocks from me.
Does he
Yeah.
ever invite you over for dinner? He's a chef. He should.
Yeah, I haven't been that way. I haven't been over there yet, but I'll catch up with him. I've been running around like a crazy person, but now that my life is slowed down a lot, I'm going to make more time. And Ed, I'm going to have him on my show. Actually, we're going to have him do some of his cooking. You know,
Oh, that's great.
a cooking demonstration that he can narrate.
That's-
But yeah, I mean, you know, here's the bottom line, AJ. You will find a way to do anything you want to do. And anything you don't do, it's because you don't want to do it bad enough. And when you do, all of the obstacles that you thought were in your way will be gone. You know, and because what will you do? We live in an information age. You can go to this computer on laptop, phone, or what have you. When you want to find something out, you can. There's no shortage of information. There's no shortage of recipes. There's no shortage of any of that, AJ. You know, you've done some amazing things. And so if you say you can't find it, it's because you're not really looking.
Bingo. Other than losing weight, did any of your health markers improve when you made your dietary change?
No, I really didn't remember. I'm just trying to think because I just got I'm going for hopefully my last colonoscopy. I do them every 10 years as I've been told. I'm doing my next one next week. And I've never had a polyp. I've never had any of that to begin with. But so far, everything is really where it's supposed to be. You know, I mean, nothing's really changed because I've been doing this so long. You know, I changed a bit when I first started, and my cholesterol went down and some other things changed, but all the other markers are right where they're supposed to be.
Nice. Yesterday, when we had a Dr. Montgomery on, we were talking about things like alcohol and coffee, which he doesn't recommend to his patients in general or for heart health. And I'm curious, as a urologist, can those also be deleterious to people's urological health?
Well, the one thing about men and coffee, particularly caffeinated coffee, is that it tightens up the muscle fibers in the prostate. And if you're already having some urinary issues, drinking caffeinated coffee, in addition to caffeine also being sort of like a diuretic, you get both the inability to empty as well as you used to, now with the need to empty more because the caffeine makes you want to urinate more. So I tell, I say to the folks, if you notice that, then that may be what's causing it. And it's not just coffee, it's any caffeinated beverage. Because we always think about coffee, but you got to think about tea. You got to think about sodas if you're still drinking those things. A lot of things contain caffeine that you might not be aware of. So always check just to be sure.
Nice. What about, I heard for bladder too, like women, isn't caffeine not so good?
Well, caffeine is a stimulant. It's a stimulant, and sometimes it may increase your urinary frequency. So, and it also, if you already have some issues, the bladder neck responds to these stimulants too, and tightens up. So, in the men with prostate issues, in addition to that, they may find that their streams may not be as strong as they used to be when they're drinking, particularly lots of caffeinated beverages, whether they be coffee, tea, pop, or chocolate.
Yeah, that's how we know you're from Chicago, because you say pop.
Yeah, soda.
That's how I was raised. It was called pop too. Yeah. Other parts of the world, they say soda. Boy, so when you're doing your podcast, will it be on all the platforms like iTunes that we can listen to?
Yeah, I'll find out. I'll get my grandson to show me. He's like, Granddaddy, you don't have a channel yet? He said, I got a channel. He's got a channel on about his hamster and some other thing and his dog now. But I didn't know how to do this very well, so I'm learning, and eventually I will be in all of those platforms. But I'm not trying to create a whole lot more work for myself. I'm being honest. I'm not. I'm not going to be blogging every day and all. I'm not going to be doing that. You'll catch me when you catch me. I'll put out something when I have something to say.
And how do you spend your time?
What do you mean how I spend my time?
Like all day, what do you do all day?
Oh, I got tons of stuff I'm doing. I'm working on God's Farmacy. I'm working on the book for that. And the companion book that's going to go with that. I got a lot of stuff I'm working on, Chef AJ.
Okay,
I'm
good.
still,
Well, when the book comes out,
I'm still a grandfather and great grandfather, and I got, family stuff to do. And, sometimes I have to go on granddaddy duty when my daughter needs me to pick up my grandson from school or pick him up or whatever. So, and you know what, AJ, I'll say this as we prepare to close. I don't feel the need to have to be busy all the time anymore. Sometimes you just need time to just take time to smell the roses as you're going. We've been living in this artificial world which tells you, oh, you're not valuable if you're not constantly doing something. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is nothing, because it gives you time to think about the something that you may decide to do.
Well, people are saying you're very inspirational, very wise. Sunday is a perfect day for you to be on.
Yeah, I mean, I just thank God so much for the path he created for me, and that how I was permitted to walk that path, and the path that he's laying ahead of me. I don't know where that's going to go. I'm not even going to worry about it. All I know is I know what I'm going to do. And I know that everything that will be needed to serve his people is going to be added to what I do. And I'm not worried about it one single bit. I've got AJ in my life. I got I got Baxter, all you guys. So I'm not worried about anything.
Wow. You're so soothing. You're kind of like anti-anxiety for me. Just
Yeah,
you're
well,
so chill. I love it.
But you know what? But that's what eating plants. I'm not full of stuff that's been frightened to death. I'm, I can think of things just, you think of the cow just chewing out there in the farm, until they get ready to get slaughtered. Their life isn't horrific. And, these CAFOs are not good things, but I would recommend people rewatch some of these movies, because these movies are really, really important, Chef AJ, for us to watch. And Food Inc. is still a great movie if you've not seen it. It's old, it's been out for a long time, but it really lets you know about our food supply. And a lot of the stuff, like the environmentalists are putting forward. I mean, we're paying for our ignoring the earth with what we just saw happen this weekend. And it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better, because we've not learned. But, I'll say it like this, AJ, and we can, and if you like, remember Etch-a-Sketch? You
Oh, I
remember
love that toy.
Etch-a-Sketch?
Yep. With the
Where
little
you
knobs.
where you have the little, well, not Etch-a-Sketch, I'm sorry, the ones where you used to write on it and then you lift it up and everything you wrote
I
on
know
it
what
was
I don't know what
support.
it's called, but I know what you mean. I totally know that toy. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something, AJ. We've been writing some awful things on our pads. And now those pads are just crowded with all kinds of bad messaging. And we're getting ready to go to a point in our lives where our creator is going to reset us. It's going to lift that page and erase all of that. And some of us are going to be erased along with it. And that's what's happening now. And because we didn't pay attention to the most valuable asset we have, and that's our planet called the Earth. And you just can't continue to take, destroy at the Amazon rainforest, our lungs at the rate of an acre almost a second, and not think there's not going to be consequences. Just because it doesn't happen today doesn't mean it's not going to happen tomorrow. And that's what we're going to see. We're going to continue to see the kind of weather things, the patterns that we're seeing now, and it's going to get worse. So we better take heed and start eating the way that we were intended to eat, that doesn't kill our planet. And that's the other thing about eating plants. It doesn't kill the planet. And you have to atone for when you kill creatures. At some point, you have to atone for that. And we're doing that. And I just hope and pray that we can begin to live a more peaceful world in harmonious existence with all the other creatures and plants on the planet.
Yeah. Amen. And Vicky's saying the name of the toy was the Magic Slate.
Yep.
Yeah. And people are saying, like Trish, thank you, doctor, for speaking the truth. You're not just a physician, you're a metaphysician.
Oh, wow. Well,
Nice.
thank you. I thank all of you for your attention. I thank you, Chef AJ, for allowing me to be on your show. And my only prayer is that in some small way, I was able to speak a truth that somebody didn't know, that they can now incorporate into their lives and put them on a trajectory to be able to do bigger and greater things than they ever thought possible.
Thank you. And please let me know when the book comes out.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. And thank you for everything you've always done, Chef AJ. I'll never forget you and Chef Babette in that car.
Oh, that was so fun. We won't say exactly what we said, but it was a hoot. Thank you so much, Dr. Mason.
You're
It's
welcome.
been
And
catching up
AJ,
with
can I get a copy of the program at some point?
Yes, as soon as I'm done, I'll download it and send it to you.
Thank you so much, AJ. And thank you all of AJ's fans. Thank you all so very much. And may God continue to bless each and every one of you with continued health and strength as I leave you now in peace.
Thank you. That was beautiful. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow a bit later at 2 p.m. Pacific time when my guest is Chef Ron Russell of Sun Cafe. He'll be making El Salvadorian rice and a pumpkin squash stuffing. Have